Hi everyone, today we are going to be working on some Exacto knife practice to get comfortable using cardboard and using the Exacto knife. So let's first talk a little bit about the things you'll need. You have to have a cutting mat. This is a surface that you can cut with your mat and it basically heals itself, so it's not going to damage your furniture. You're also going to need your blade and you're going to need what you're cutting. And in this case, we're working through this sheet to kind of keep us organized and practice different types of cuts. Let's talk about safety. Okay, your Exacto knife is a knife, and so it is dangerous if you're using it inappropriately. When you take a look up close, the side that has this extra sheen to it, that is the blade side. So you always want to have that piece down as you're cutting because it's the sharp area of it, okay? The little ridged area here, it's kind of like a lino cutting tool that we've used before, where if it gets loose, so if I turn it a little bit, this little jig that the blade is stuck inside of becomes loose. And that's where if it falls out or if you need to replace the blade, you can go and put a blade into that cross and then you have to tighten it one more time. Okay, so we keep the blades in there. If it ever looks dull, if it's chipped, let us know. So safety-wise, since it is a blade, you obviously don't want to cut yourself. So you don't want to ever cut towards your own fingers or put your finger on that blade. If you do cut yourself, it's really important you let us know right away, and that way we can clean and sanitize the tool. We can make sure you wash your hands, get you a Band-Aid, so everything is cleaned up so that there's no risk involved with blood. Okay, so that's a little bit about safety. The last thing with safety is if you are moving around the room with your blade, you always want to carry it with the blade down, okay? We never want to carry it facing out, carry it facing up, because if you trip, you could hurt yourself. So it's always facing down, and usually we'll come and collect these. All right, so let's talk about what we're doing. We're starting with this really thin cardboard just to practice and get better with using the knife. So if we look on our sheet, the first thing it asks is to make a small square and a small rectangle. So anytime you're making something with straight edges, a lot of cardboard already comes with those straight edges. So use that to your advantage. So I know this is a straight edge, and I know that this would be a right angle. A square has 4 right angles. So I know I'm gonna take and basically create that right here. Yes, this is curved, but remember, this is practice. So I'm trying to make my square so each of the sides is about the same shape. Another thing, in addition to using the straight edges, this is way easier than like making a square somewhere in the middle, is if I know I'm now gonna make a small rectangle, if I line that up directly next to what I just created, that square, that means I have one less cut to do. So now when I cut this line, I'm gonna cut both the square side and the rectangle side. So I just saved myself a little bit of time. For something more like a circle, that one, you can't really put it on the side as much. And in this case, we want you to practice 3. It's okay if it's not a perfect circle. If you get to that for your project, you might need to use like a circle template or trace something. But for today, it's okay if they are not perfect. So there are my circles. An organic shape, that would be anything that has curvy shapes, and it could be kind of a free-form shape if you want. Okay, capital letter, lowercase letter, and number. I've already drawn those on there for myself. And if you look, I put them right next to each other just to kind of help and mean less cuts for myself. So notice I'm drawing everything ahead of time, really important, because if I'm just taking a knife and going for it, I don't have my line that I need to follow. So you draw it first and then you do your cutting. Another great tool is using a ruler for straight edges. So if I grab my ruler, this is gonna help me make sure that I get those straight edges. All right, let's start cutting. So I'm gonna start with my square and my rectangle first. In this case, I know that it is a straight edge, so I'm gonna take my ruler and go right along the line that I just used. I'm left-handed, so I'm using my left hand with the blade, and my right hand is gonna hold the ruler in this kind of L shape. If I hold it in one spot, as I continue down, the ruler might move. So really important that you hold it in two spots so you've got some strength. I like to stand up for this too. I think it's really helpful to have a lot of weight that you can put on what you're holding. All right, I'm gonna hold my knife similar to how I'd hold a pencil, right? My index finger is right on top of it. Some people put their index finger a little bit on top of the blade, not the sharp side. I prefer to hold this kind of ridged area with my index finger. All right, I'm going to cut gently down. And it's always easier if you're cutting in the direction that feels natural. So what I mean by that is if I was going to cut this line next, and I hold my hand awkwardly away from me and I start to cut, that's gonna feel really awkward and you're not gonna have as clean of a cut. So instead, I'm gonna turn the cardboard and the ruler so that it is a little bit closer and easier for me. Okay, I'm gonna go down, I got my square. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing to cut the other side of the rectangle. The only other one that I wanna show you is one of the circles, because this can be a little bit tricky. So with a circle, you have a couple different ways you can do it. So these people here who cut these before, they simply went and held their blade and followed the line, and as they went, they curved around the shape and turned their cardboard as they went. This is definitely a technique that you can use to practice your cutting and refining. So you can do that. If I cut along that same pattern and it doesn't come up easily, don't rip it because you want to have clean edges. Instead, go back to where it's sticking and cut once again. Another way to do it though, I think it saves a little bit of time, is to start with basically making a box right around your edges. So if you take a look, I'm cutting out that overall shape, and now I can go in and adjust and cut off my corners. Notice I'm not cutting towards myself. All right, so you've got your list of things. You want to work on creating each of these items and practicing using your Exacto knife.